Yemen, a land steeped in ancient history, perched precariously on the tip of the Arabian Peninsula, finds itself engulfed in a maelstrom of conflict, a volcano of human suffering erupting amidst the arid landscape. It is a conflict born of internal strife, a fractured mosaic of tribal allegiances, political ambitions, and religious fervor, yet its flames are fanned by the winds of regional power plays and international interests, transforming a local crisis into a global tinderbox. The players in this tragic drama are a complex tapestry of factions, each vying for dominance, their motives often obscured by a fog of propaganda and misinformation. The Houthis, a Zaidi Shia movement born in the northern highlands, stand in defiant opposition to the internationally recognized government of Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi, a fragile entity propped up by the military might of Saudi Arabia. The specter of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, a shadowy yet potent force, adds another layer of complexity to the conflict, exploiting the chaos to further its own agenda. The roots of this struggle run deep, stretching back to the tumultuous aftermath of the Arab Spring, a period of hope and upheaval that swept across the region, leaving in its wake a legacy of fractured states and simmering resentments. In Yemen, the echoes of revolution reverberated through the mountains and valleys, shaking the foundations of a fragile political order. The Houthis, long marginalized and disenfranchised, sensed an opportunity to seize power, their ambitions fueled by a potent mix of religious zeal and political opportunism. The Houthi advance southward, a tide of fighters sweeping across the country sent shockwaves through the region. Saudi Arabia, the self-proclaimed guardian of the Arabian Peninsula, watched with growing alarm as its southern neighbor descended into chaos, fearing the rise of a Shia-led government aligned with its regional rival Iran. The specter of Iranian influence, a recurring nightmare in the Saudi strategic calculus, spurred a decisive response, a military intervention that would transform the Yemeni conflict into a proxy war, a bloody battleground for regional ambitions. In March 2015, the Saudi-led coalition, a consortium of Arab states backed by the United States and the United Kingdom, launched Operation Decisive Storm, a military campaign aimed at halting the Houthi advance and restoring the Hadi government to power. The skies over Yemen roared with the thunder of fighter jets. The desert sands trembled under the weight of tanks and armored vehicles as a technologically advanced military machine unleashed its fury upon a nation already teetering on the brink of collapse. The consequences of this intervention were swift and brutal. The fragile infrastructure of Yemen, already strained by years of underdevelopment and neglect, crumbled under the weight of relentless airstrikes. Hospitals, schools, markets, and residential areas were transformed into scenes of carnage, the air thick with the stench of death and the cries of the wounded. The United Nations, sounding the alarm, declared a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale, warning of an impending famine that threatened to engulf millions. As the conflict escalated, the already complex web of alliances and rivalries grew even more convoluted. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, a shadowy organization with a history of audacious attacks and a global reach, exploited the chaos to expand its influence, carving out a foothold in the ungoverned spaces of southern Yemen. The specter of the Islamic State, ISIS, though weakened by its territorial losses in Syria and Iraq, cast a long shadow over the region, its ideology of violence and extremism finding fertile ground in the fertile soil of despair. The rise of these extremist groups, a consequence of the prolonged conflict and the erosion of state authority, added a chilling new dimension to the Yemeni crisis. The international community, already grappling with the humanitarian fallout of the war, faced the alarming prospect of a new front in the global war on terror, emerging in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, a strategic crossroads of vital importance to global trade and energy security. The United States, deeply entangled in the conflict through its support of the Saudi-led coalition, found itself caught in a strategic quagmire, its policies seemingly exacerbating the very problems they sought to address. The provision of weapons, intelligence, and logistical support to the Saudi war effort, while intended to bolster the Hadi government and counter Iranian influence, inadvertently fueled the flames of war, empowering factions with dubious human rights records and contributing to the suffering of the Yemeni people. Saudi Arabia's intervention in Yemen, a bold gamble fueled by strategic anxieties and regional rivalries, has proven to be a costly and protracted affair, a quagmire that has tarnished its international reputation and drained its resources. The initial optimism of a swift victory, a decisive blow that would restore the Houthi government and crush the Houthi rebellion, evaporated amidst the harsh realities of a complex and intractable conflict, a war waged not only on the battlefields but also in the treacherous realm of international diplomacy and public opinion. The Saudi leadership, driven by a deep-seated fear of Iranian expansionism and the perceived threat of a Shia-led government on its southern border, calculated that a decisive military intervention would secure its interests and maintain its regional hegemony. The Houthis, however, proved to be a resilient and resourceful adversary, adept at exploiting the mountainous terrain and leveraging the grievances of a population weary of corruption and foreign interference. The conflict, initially framed as a struggle against Iranian-backed Houthi aggression, has morphed into a complex web of shifting alliances and competing agendas, a kaleidoscope of tribal rivalries, political machinations, and religious tensions. The Saudi-led coalition, initially united in its opposition to the Houthis, has become increasingly fractured, its members pursuing divergent goals and priorities, often at odds with the stated objectives of the intervention. The United Arab Emirates, a key partner in the coalition, has carved out its own sphere of influence in southern Yemen, backing separatist groups and pursuing its own economic and strategic interests, often at the expense of the Houthi government. The skies above Yemen have become a stage for a deadly ballet, a relentless dance of drones, their ominous hum a constant reminder of the ever-present threat of violence. The Houthis, armed with an arsenal of sophisticated drones and ballistic missiles supplied by Iran, have demonstrated a remarkable ability to strike deep within Saudi territory, targeting critical infrastructure, military installations, and even civilian airports. These attacks, though often intercepted by Saudi air defenses, have exposed the vulnerability of the kingdom and sent shockwaves through the global energy market. The Saudi-led coalition, in response, has unleashed its own aerial armada, employing a vast arsenal of fighter jets, helicopters, and drones to bombard Houthi positions and cripple their ability to wage war. The United States, a staunch ally of Saudi Arabia and a major supplier of military hardware, has played a crucial role in this air campaign, providing intelligence, logistical support, and precision-guided munitions that have enabled the coalition to maintain its aerial superiority. This aerial duel, a technological marvel in its own right, has come at a terrible human cost. The relentless bombardment of Yemen, often conducted with little regard for civilian casualties, has decimated the country's infrastructure, crippled its economy, and driven millions to the brink of starvation. The United Nations has repeatedly condemned the indiscriminate nature of these airstrikes, accusing both sides of war crimes and calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities. The Red Sea, a vital artery of global trade and a strategic waterway linking Europe, Asia, and Africa, has become a perilous passage, a maritime battleground where the echoes of conflict reverberate through the bustling shipping lanes. The Houthi rebels, determined to disrupt the flow of goods and exert pressure on the Saudi-led coalition, have deployed a fleet of small, fast boats armed with anti-ship missiles, posing a significant threat to commercial vessels and naval warships alike. These attacks, though often thwarted by international naval patrols, have raised alarms about the vulnerability of this crucial waterway and the potential for a major disruption to global trade. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow choke point at the southern entrance to the Red Sea, has become a focal point of tension, a maritime bottleneck where the stakes are high and the margin for error is slim. The Houthis, recognizing the strategic importance of this passage, have repeatedly threatened to close the strait, a move that would cripple global shipping and send shockwaves through the energy market. The international community, acutely aware of the potential consequences of such a closure, has deployed naval forces to deter Houthi aggression and ensure the free flow of goods through this vital waterway. The conflict in Yemen, once a localized crisis, has spilled over into the maritime domain, transforming the Red Sea into a theater of operations where the interests of regional and global powers intersect. The United States, deeply concerned about the security of this vital waterway, has deployed warships to the region, conducting freedom of navigation operations and providing escorts to commercial vessels transiting the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. The United States, a nation haunted by the ghosts of past interventions and the specter of imperial overreach, finds itself deeply embroiled in the Yemeni conflict, its policies entangled in a complex web of strategic interests, moral dilemmas, and domestic political pressures. The Obama administration, initially hesitant to become entangled in another Middle Eastern quagmire, gradually increased its support for the Saudi-led intervention, providing intelligence, logistical assistance, and billions of dollars worth of weaponry. This support, justified as a necessary measure to counter Iranian influence and combat terrorism, has drawn sharp criticism from human rights groups and fueled accusations of American complicity in war crimes. The Trump administration, eager to strengthen ties with Saudi Arabia and confront Iran, doubled down on its support for the war effort, providing even greater military assistance in shielding the Saudi government from international condemnation for its conduct in Yemen. This unwavering support, driven by a transactional approach to foreign policy and a disdain for multilateral diplomacy, further entrenched the United States in the conflict, deepening its moral and strategic quagmire. The Biden administration, inheriting this complex legacy, has pledged to reassess American policy in Yemen, prioritizing diplomacy and humanitarian assistance while ending support for offensive military operations. This shift in approach, though welcomed by human rights advocates, faces significant challenges as the conflict has become deeply entrenched, with multiple actors pursuing divergent goals and the humanitarian crisis reaching catastrophic proportions.